Nottingham. Paraga, thank you, Ian. Yes, and I just want to say, just a sort of a preamble to the evening. This is an evening that we have organized in the context of a project called The Nature of Mind. Yeah? So we've been exploring in a joint effort with other centers in England, with Adhisthana, which is our main retreat center in the UK, and internationally, you can say it's a hub of much of our activity as a spiritual tradition, and other urban centers like Nottingham around the UK. We are trying to bring a common approach to talk or create spaces where we can talk about mind from different angles. So we are bringing this, what we can offer from our understanding and our practice of the Buddhist teachings, but also we're inviting people from many different disciplines. So neuroscientists, psychiatrists, people that have worked with mind and consciousness in different ways. So if you go to our website, we have a page dedicated to this project, and also you can visit the Adhisthana website. They have the main page for the project is there, and you can see all the other centers are involved with this. There is also, as much as we do these kind of evenings, exploring things, discussing topics, there is also the possibility of joining morning meditation. So this week in particular, there is somebody facilitating meditations online. You can find more information about that in the Adhisthana website as well, and you can sign up there for notifications. And keep an eye on our website as well, because we are organizing different events. This is a project that is going to run until the end of August. And we'll be adding more and more events in relation to this topic. I'm just going to change the view here. Hopefully Gareth can edit this bit out from the recording. Okay, so we can see the people that are there connecting online. So it's a real pleasure for me to introduce Paraga tonight. So I'm obviously not from Venezuela. I am from Venezuela. Sorry. I'm obviously not from England. That's what I want to say. Okay. I'm from a place called Venezuela, and so I came to the UK because I wanted to go to further my journey within Triratna, and I landed in a place in Cambridge, sort of a team-based right livelihood project. Yeah, we have different projects in Triratna, so it's very much the nature of how we do things in Triratna. It's very experimental. Yeah, and I was towards the end of the process with Cambridge, and so one of the things that I did in Cambridge was being part of the maintenance team, and we used to travel around the country, doing shop fitting and different things. But towards the end of the process of Cambridge, the Windhorse Evolution project, team-based right livelihood project that I was part of, coming to an end, we went around the UK dismantling shops. Yeah. So I came to Nottingham to dismantle one of the oldest shops that we had in the Windhorse Evolution, the one in the Broadmarsh, and I remember very well having a break, my lunch break from that day, and it was St. Patrick's Day. Actually, I remember this because I saw some advertising today for St. Patrick's Day, and I was wandering in town. I never been to Nottingham, walking around in town, and I was wandering, and I was thinking of Paraga. I don't know why. I was thinking of Paraga, and then I was walking and I see this guy who looked like Paraga, and he was looking at me and I was looking at him, and suddenly we kind of click. Oh, I know you, yeah. And it was Paraga. And Paraga, I don't know if you remember this, but you say, I was thinking of you, So we were thinking of each other at that point. And Paraga, what are you doing? I explained him what I was doing. I said to him, well, I'm looking for a pub to go and have a lunch before going back to. I say, no, forget it. It's St. Patrick's Day. Everything is full. So he took me to this building. I never been to the Buddhist center before. And he took me to the community, and everybody was very welcoming. And I remember very, very well talking to Artabando that day. Artabando showing me some paintings that he did in his ordination course. He had an assignment in his ordination course of imagining if he were to go overseas to start a Buddhist center, where he would go. And he created this painting of a Caracas Buddhist center, with some monks sitting and everything. And I never crossed my mind that one day I will be living in this building, working in this center. And but that meeting with Paraga has something of the quality of the person that he is. He is somebody who connects very readily with people, and he's something that I feel with Paraga is he's very welcoming. He's very able to. Sometimes we joke sometimes, Zach and me, when we talk about our meetings with Paraga. So that's one of the topics in the community, our meetings with Paraga. Is the Paraga can be, sometimes like you are talking to him and things seem a bit ordinary, and then suddenly it's like something switch on, and he's fully there. It's a force, really. Yeah, it's a force of imagination, creativity. Something that I really enjoy talking to Paraga about is archetypes and dreams, and these other aspects of my consciousness, my mind, that not necessarily fit in my ordinary experience. And I'm very grateful, brother, that you are in Nottingham, and that we have that history, that journey in common. I'm looking forward to hear you tonight. So
great,
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, all for watching. But I remember I was thinking about that meeting just yesterday, funnily enough. Yeah, and my view of it is slightly different. Is that I was walking up towards Waterstones from like Marks and Spencer's, and you were walking along, and I saw this figure with his hood up, and then we just sort of met, and it was just like, oh, yeah, it was very strange. It was very good. Yeah. What? Okay, so we will do. Yeah, so in the second half, we're going to look. I'll just mention it now. We're going to look at. So I invited me to talk about this nature of mind and sort of consciousness. So I'll just be exploring a little bit what is the nature of mind from a Buddhist perspective, but also from the perspective of modern. What's the word? No. I don't know what the word is. Start that sentence again. We'll be looking at the nature of mind from the perspective of near-death experiences. So that's what we'll be doing in the second half. I won't say any more than that now. But what we'll do now is we'll meditate till about 8:05. And is that correct? 8:05? Maybe 6 minutes past 8. Okay. See how creative I'm feeling. So, yeah, at some point we'll meditate till some point. So what we'll do is, so there's some people I think that I don't know about online, but that maybe haven't been here for a while, or maybe haven't been to the Buddhist Center at all. I'm not exactly sure what is going on online. But what I'm going to do is a sort of led meditation stroke meditation-y, workshop-y type of thing. So that's what we'll sort of do. So for some, it might even be an introduction to meditation, but I think for others, and I'm just going to share with you a little bit how I sort of meditate, because I think it's always good when you have, I used to love it when I used to do what Ori Vochen does now at the centre. I used to be at the Mitte convener, that was how we met, which is partly why we've got that lovely connection. But I'd love it when we had an order member would come and visit, and I'd always feel disappointed if they didn't lead the meditation as well, because it's just nice to see how different people approach it. So if you haven't meditated before, just relax and just sort of follow me. I don't want to overcomplicate it and do an introduction to meditation. But we'll do a sort of a kind of body-based meditation. If you're at home, just make sure you've got a few minutes now to shuffle about, make sure you get in a good posture. I can find it takes longer to get in a good posture at home if you're on your settee and you've got a bit of a bad back or something weird. So just try and get yourselves comfortable and reasonably upright so you don't fall asleep. Yeah. So it's like a Thor's hammer, this, isn't it? I don't know if I use that. How I mostly meditate has been slightly born out of struggling in meditation, really. I've always kind of been able to meditate, but it was particularly, just to give a bit of context, it was born out of living 5 years in a retreat centre down in Norfolk at Padmaloka Retreat Centre, and always being on lots of retreats, and there'd be some meditation retreats, and I would have just had enough, deeply have had enough of being on another meditation retreat, and I severely felt like I just could not be bothered. I had huge resistance. I was on the ordination team and I couldn't not go to the meditations. You know, I had to sort of turn up, but there'd be such horrendous resistance and I just wouldn't know what to do. And I felt like I literally couldn't take another step in the direction of the shrine room, but I would have to go and we'd spend a few hours in there every day. But what I ended up doing was just having to go in there and just having to sit down. So I just sit there and I just think, I'm not going to meditate. I'm just going to sit here. And I just try and sit there. I wouldn't try and do anything really. I just get in my sort of posture and sit there without making it look too obvious to the people that had paid to be on retreat that I absolutely was detesting every moment of being in the shrine room and wanted them all to leave. I wanted to leave and go somewhere else. But what I would do is just sit and I would just sit there and just not really do anything for the first 10 minutes. And I just think, what I do is I think I can't be asked to meditate. I'm not going to meditate. So I'd sit there. Of course, after 10 minutes, I would notice that I would naturally relax a bit. I'd naturally sort of close my eyes and then I wouldn't be thinking, okay, I can meditate now. I'm just thinking, I don't know what I was thinking really, but I just relax a bit. I just close my eyes. And then I would find myself moving into meditation, which is just building up a natural sense of body awareness. And then I just relax and just sort of see what happens. So that's just what we'll do tonight. And because when we taught meditation, it has to be this way, and I'm not dissing the way it's taught, but we're taught to turn into the meditation. Mindfulness of breathing, first stage, 1. Breathe in, breathe out, 2. And that just makes me tense even thinking about it still. And I first came across that meditation in 1997. It still makes me tense thinking about that. So, but what I will still do now is we'll go and sit. I mean, you have to teach it that way. There's no other way around it. Because if you teach it from the beginning, the way I'm talking about, people wouldn't know what to do. And they just think, well, I might as well turn the telly on because I'm not really doing anything. But we're all sitting here. The context is important. So you've decided to come here. We're sitting in the shrine room for this sort of meditation period. But that given, there's a lot of effort has already been put forward. So you don't need to do a lot right now. So what we will do is... that's not my phone, by the way. That's something else. So what we will do is we'll just sit for 10 minutes and just sort of see what happens. We're going to meditate for longer than that. But this is what I do at the beginning of meditation is I just sit. I'll go in the shrine room at home and I'll just sort of sit and just sort of see what happens. And I don't always close my eyes either. I probably will tonight because I'm a bit nervous and I'll go, I'm just going to pretend to meditate. But I don't always close my eyes. I just sort of sit there and relax. So basically there's an invitation. If you know what to do and you want to crack on with the mindfulness of breathing or the metta bhavana, then just go ahead, of course. But another way of just approaching the beginning of meditation certainly is just to sit, relax, close your eyes, or don't close your eyes. So I'm so used to saying that. Just sit, just relax, and just sort of see what happens. Whenever you can, if you do anything, you can just have a mild sense of the fact that, you're here in the shrine room. just have some open awareness of your experience, but let's just totally open it up and just sit and relax and just see what happens, and then I might say something else in 10 minutes. Okay. And I'm not going to ring the bell because I'm not. But we'll make a sort of start, so to speak. That's the other thing, when the bell goes, that can be a point of kind of going, okay, I better start meditating. I'm not going to talk for the whole of the session, by the way. So in a way, it's just starting to take your surroundings in a very sort of informal way. If you have your eyes open, it can just help to just either look at the floor a little bit or just gaze at the shrine for a few minutes. If you're struggling and you feel you need to be doing something, then just have a sense of where your body is contacting the seat or the cushion, or you're feeling your feet on the ground, or feeling the contact with your hands, or even noticing where you're holding any tension. That's if you feel it would help to just bring some awareness in the beginning stage to your body. But you might not even be ready to do that yet. That's fine. There's never a rush to try and be focused in meditation. So just allow yourself to be present with other people, whether that's online or in person. And if you like, just having some sense of, do you feel tired? Do you feel drowsy? Do you feel a bit speedy? Are there things in the day that you can't put down? Or do you already feel fairly relaxed, fairly at ease? Or you're already fairly concentrated on the body or the sensations of the breath? So to just start with just accepting that whatever is in your experience is fine. You felt this before. You managed all right. You'll feel it again. You'll manage all right. So just whatever's happening, it's okay. Just remembering that. And with that, again, just being in a little bit of body awareness if you haven't already. So if you're feeling a bit speedy or a bit racy, or there seem to be quite a lot of thoughts, then you can just take a few sort of very relaxed, deeper breaths and just relax as you breathe out. If you're feeling quite drowsy and tired, you can just bring your awareness to the sort of top half of your body, maybe even around the shoulders, the chest, the head. So just really giving yourself the space to just arrive. So as we've arrived a little bit, just beginning to, again, just very, very subtly, without much force, just try and see if you can naturally be aware of the space between the tips of your toes and the tip of your head. So this space that the body is in. So just feeling that space, feeling what's happening in that space of the body. And just see if you can, if there's a difference between you thinking about that space, or whether there's a difference between you actually being aware of physical sensations. So even if that's those sensations of tension, discomfort, or a desire to just walk out of the room, or whether there's a sense of lightness, ease, or whether there's a sort of neutral nothingness, just noticing whatever is there. And there's simply no experience which is any more desirable than the other one. All we're doing in meditation is just having the sort of courage to just be aware of what's present in your experience. We're not trying to feel blissful. We're not trying to empty our mind. We're just noticing experience and what's present in experience. And the way we're doing that is just by having this just gentle awareness of the physical body. So again, just completely accepting whatever's there.
So sorry, I'm going to have to go.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. So again, just bringing a sense of awareness to your present experience. Whatever that experience is. And just now, if you can, just bringing some awareness to the breath. So just feeling that, again, just the physical sensations in the space of the body. So just noticing what's it like as you breathe in. How does it feel to breathe out? So just staying at ease, staying relaxed. And just having an awareness of the breath. And just in the last minute, just having a sense of, just trying to feel a sense of energy as you breathe in. And a sense of just really relaxing and letting go as you breathe out. So a sense of energy and rising up as you breathe in. And just relaxing and grounding as you breathe out. And just particularly trying to notice any sense of pleasure. Is there any pleasant experience in that sense of the energy as you breathe in, and the relaxing and letting go as you breathe out? Any pleasurable sensations in the body or in your experience? Okay, so we'll just draw the meditation to a close there. Okay, so I think I am handing over to Connor now. No? Claire.
She's just come down.
Shall we do Connor now?
We can do the announcements now.
Oh, I haven't got announcements on here, I just got Dana.
Do you want me to come to the front or? Yeah, so I'm going to change the running order.
You can hear me all right? Okay. Is everyone here? Okay, good. All ready to start? Good. So, just to say, it always feels a bit weird online, not that, as in, I can see you all there, but I can't, it's always difficult to sort of take you in completely through this, because I don't want to have to look at a black spot, which is the lens of the camera. So if I'm not, I am aware of you, but if I'm not looking at you, that's because I don't want to look at the black spot over there. So if you see me doing this, that's me looking at you. If you see me doing that, I'm looking at you. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so tonight we're doing this, well, the Buddhist Centre have been doing this series Maitreya Bandhu had envisioned this big project that they're sort of in the middle of at the moment called the Nature of Mind series, and he's running it from Adhisthana Retreat Centre in the Malverns. So they've been looking at, as Aryavachan mentioned earlier, they've been looking at, it's a sort of 6-month course culminating in, I think it's a 2-week retreat or something like that at Adhisthana. And they're trying to, I think it's really interesting and exciting, and I sort of hope it works. I really hope it works, because it's trying to look at the nature of mind and sort of consciousness, so to speak, from different lenses than the traditional Buddhist lens, in a way, which I think is really helpful, because since a lot of the sort of a lot of our Buddhist practice comes from our founding member Sangha, and a lot of his practice is obviously learned very much deeply steeped in sort of Buddhist tradition, which is essentially from, to use that horrendous, basically from sort of the East, like, to put it very sort of bluntly and a bit coarsely. And a lot of it's very traditional. A lot of the texts are quite old, although there's some more modern, recent contemporary teachers, Sangha included. But I found it really exciting when I come across, you've all probably found this 2 ways. You come across something that you find out in Buddhism, and or let's do it the other way, or you are practicing Buddhist and you read a book and it's like, wow, this is so similar to Buddhism, but it's not Buddhism and it's a little bit different, but it's, you know, some of the principles are so similar. That's really fascinating. You also have it the other way, whereby you can be interested in, I don't know, whatever it is, and then you come to Buddhism and you feel that, oh, it's got deep sympathies with this other way of looking at things, if that sort of makes sense. So I think it's just quite exciting, this project that Maitreya Bandhu sort of envisioned. And they've got neuroscientists, psychologists, sort of prominent thinkers, modern philosophers, so to speak, meditation sort of teachers, interviews, discussions, morning regular meditations, exploring, but exploring the nature of mind, particularly and deliberately from the perspective of people that aren't Buddhists, to see what the correlations are, can see what we can sort of learn anyway. So I find it fascinating.
So is it a study of other people?
It's sort of, yeah. It's other people's perspectives who've looked into the nature of mind and so on. Yeah. So it's. I should have written some of the names down of the sort of, but I think there's a very lovely modern poet. There's philosopher, neuroscientist. So say again. Compassion-based therapy. So it's all they have discussions with Maitreya Bandhu and say again, boss.
They've all been brought together.
Sort of. There's been different stages where they've had interviews with particular people, and they've focused on that for a couple of weeks, and they have an interview with someone else and have a seminar and some reflections around that. Yeah. But a lot of the stuff is up on the Adhisthana website. That's a really good place to go and have a look. Sorry, I forgot to. I just want to welcome Harriet, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Hui Wai. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Just to welcome you. I think you're both on Zoom, but I'd just like you to welcome you to the Nottingham Buddhist Centre tonight. So one of the people they were using to look at sort of the nature of mind and sort of consciousness is a nurse called Penny Sartori. I'm kind of wishing I didn't have this big piece of paper. I'm sort of regretting it now. I was telling Keith Davey 2 nights ago how great it was that I was doing it in circles and it all made sense to it. Now it feels a bit cumbersome. I wish I hadn't done it. Because it's always crinkling for all of you online. The nature of mind. Okay. Anyway, I'll just have to get over that. So Penny Sartori is, I don't know if she still is, she was certainly a nurse that worked in, where did she work? In intensive care unit, in hospitals. And she worked, obviously being a nurse working in intensive care unit, she worked very closely with people who were dying. She had some incidents where she came across people who had died and had come back to life, so been resuscitated. But what happened to her, which I find in itself absolutely fascinating, is that she was trying to look after patients who were sort of very near to death. And there's one patient in particular that she referenced, which was, it was this man who was dying, who was in an awful lot of pain. He'd been in intensive care a little while. I don't know how long, I forgot. And he was dying, and she was doing the things that a nurse is supposed to. So she was trying to moisten his lips, trying to feed him, trying to give him the particular thing that she was trying to do. She was trying to give him a bed bath, and he was finding this really uncomfortable because he basically, as far as she could see, I can't remember if he said it or not, but he was saying to her, "Can you just leave me? Just leave me. I just want to die." And she, so she was really shocked by this, because obviously she's a nurse. She's taken this job on to help people, and she's seeing this particular incident of people wanting to die because they feel that it's coming. You know, I think as far as I can see, the body and awareness has a natural response to knowing that death is coming, and just wanting to sort of just relax into that a little bit. Obviously, that's not always the case, but this gentleman just really wanted to just be left alone to die. And she was having to push him over, give him a bed bath, because that's what she had to do. So she got really quite upset by this, by the fact that, you know, this was her job, but she was actually causing more suffering to some patients who were on the brink of death, really. So from that, she went into quite a struggle. She started really questioning her work, and she went through what she described as a sort of period of depression, really. Because obviously, you know, she wanted to help people and it wasn't working, and she just felt quite helpless. She got quite sort of depressed and felt like she wasn't being effective as a nurse. But what she started noticing was she started taking more awareness of people that were dying, what they really needed. And through that, she started being aware of people who had had experiences of dying, so pronounced clinically dead, and then they'd been brought back to life. They'd either been brought back to life, or they just come back to life. And that sounds a bit weird, but as in, I can't think of another, you know, they just come back to life. The body had, you know, so to speak, consciousness had come back into the body and inhabited the body again, and life had. And some of the stories they told her, she became really sort of fascinated in. Some of the people's experience, because she's in intensive care, she's seeing a lot of death. So she's used to it. She's used to, you know, being around someone at death. So she's quite at ease with that. But what she becomes interested in is this whole point of death and what people talk about when they come back. I imagine I might be incorrectly reading things here, but I wonder if it was because she just wondered how best to help somebody who was dying, if she can hear, well, what's it like for people when they die? You know, what goes on? But she, I think because she'd struggled, she became really quite vehemently interested in these stories of people who had died and had then come back. So she made it her sort of, I suppose in a way, her mission to explore what they now call near-death experiences. So this is where someone has actually physically died, the body's died, then they've come alive again, and what they then sort of talk about. So she made it her, I suppose, she kind of found her, as she puts it, she found her calling, which was to explore near-death experiences. She's got a few books out there about it. If you look on this, again, great interview with Maito Bandu. There's lots of stuff on YouTube about her. So Penny Sartori, again, if you go on the Adhisthana website, I don't know if it's the blurb from the talk tonight, but yeah, Penny Sartori, you'll be able to find some stuff about her. So I just talk a bit about some of the stuff that she found that she seemed to find with these patients. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with time. I don't want to twaddle on for ages, and after about 35 minutes, it's about 25 minutes, I start nodding off if someone's talking and losing interest. So I'll see how we go. I might just stop at some point. We'll have a bit of a 5-minute leg stretch, and then I'll see how we do. We're not going to go into groups, but we might open up to questions. Not that I'm an expert, because I'm not, but I'll just to say we'll see how it goes. I don't want to bore you all too much in terms of time. So what she found was, by looking at lots of these near-death experiences, was so I'm just going to go through some of the sort of more common stories people come back with when they've sort of returned. So just fascinating me, which I find really interesting to start with, is this is from our perspective. So this is from a sort of European perspective as to what happens. And apparently the perspective of near-death experiences is similar, but also very different in different cultures, which is fascinating in itself. There's no definite, this is what happens, which I feel quite glad about, but maybe I'll say something a bit more about that later. So she found that, there's this real sort of similarity to what happens. So people would often, I'm just going to go into some details here that she's recorded. People would often experience themselves perceiving their body from an out-of-body state. So from above the room, they perceive their body. But what's interesting is it's not just like they're in this dark space and they perceive their body. They perceive their body often in the hospital room. They perceive the doctors and the nurses and the cleaners, whatever it is, around the hospital bed, carrying on doing their job. And what she'd found was there were some things when none of this, what happens after death, is proof. We can't have proof of anything really. We can only have our direct experience about our direct experience. So we can never have proof. So I suppose what she's saying and what I'm recounting, it's never proof of near-death experiences, but it's very good food for thought about it. So she had one patient who, so he's pronounced dead. Then whilst that's going on, he noticed that, they were doing things in the room that it seemed that he recalled after that he couldn't have known about. So there was a nurse came into the room onto the shift that wasn't on shift before he died. This person had not seen this nurse before. So that was, and he described what she looked like, the nurse. There was another patient described this, a physio who was in the next, it was all curtained off, so no one could see what was going on. He perceived the physio by the next bed, panicking and trying to look around the curtain because he could. It was clear that this, the guy was dying. So there's a physio panicking and looked around the curtain. He described what this physio was wearing. There's lots of different little stories like that about that. It appears that people couldn't have known what was going on. That was one thing she found. People have recounted seeing relatives, meeting relatives that have died. So seeing relatives, so seeing that, their dad, their mum. Sometimes these relatives would tell them that the time wasn't right and they needed to go back, which would prompt them coming back into the body. One time some relatives got quite angry with this person, saying, "What are you doing? You need to go back and take care of your family. This isn't the time." So they came back. interestingly, one person said that there was his mum and dad, and there was also this strange guy with incredibly calm demeanor, straggly hair and a beard, and incredibly piercing, holding eyes that just couldn't move away from the gaze of this person. So yeah, I mean, I kind of think that just sounds like Padmasambhava or something, but I think this person put a sort of Jesus name on it. I mean, in a way it doesn't quite matter, but I just found that was interesting. People talked about sort of angelic type beings and so on. Sometimes the experience is really, a lot of the time the experience is incredibly positive. It's like a real wake up, a quite profound sort of wake up, and it's incredibly positive. Sometimes it's quite harrowing and stressful, and people feel that they're being pulled down into sort of darkness. So it's not all kind of fun and games and bliss and maybe this is the beginning of heaven. It's like sometimes it's really difficult and quite sort of harrowing and quite painful. People talk about going on a journey. There's quite a common one where people see a light and go down a tunnel, and people have a sense of a life review as well. They'll see, as it's called, the idea of my life flashed before my eyes, but people see the whole of their life played out and it appears as if it's sort of outside of time. It appears that happens outside of time. People see profound experiences. They've had very difficult experiences and just neutral day-to-day stuff like them just washing the pots or something. Their life just goes, which I find sort of interesting again. So I'm just going to talk a bit about 2 little bits, and then we might have a break, I don't know. So there's this point of no return that people appear to get to, and they know that if they go any further, that they won't return. They won't come back to the body. And they feel, that a sense of that there's a dark tunnel with a bright light. This is what a few people have recounted, but this light has an absolutely magnetic quality to it. So they're really sort of drawn to this light. So I just thought I'd mention a sort of a slightly funny experience I've had a couple of times around this. So this wasn't a particularly, so to speak, profound. I wasn't in hospital when this happened. I don't know when it happened. I've got a rough idea, but I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened. I know it's happened at least twice, if not more than that, this experience, whatever it was. The only thing I can put it down to is having type 1 diabetes and perhaps having a few close calls. I don't really know. But my experience was, so I'm just going back to this because I can sometimes get ahead of myself and miss out something important. So my experience was basically that it was in quite a dark space, and it felt like there was, again, this magnetic quality. It felt like all of my being, all of my volition, all of my everything, 99.9% of it was being carried by this sort of wind in a certain direction. And it felt like there was this, again, I was picked up on this note that Penny Sartori said, this magnetic quality to a movement happening. And I sort of knew somehow that it's not like I was thinking, I'm going to die. I just knew that I was leaving and I wouldn't come back. So I knew that was definitely sort of happening. And it's the same experience that I've had it, I know I've had it 2 times, but I can only say that because I know it's been more than once. How many times it's happened, I don't know. I assume it's 2 if it's more than 1. But I don't know. So it's a real sense of, in this dark space and absolutely everything, there's literally a wind. But the wind at this point isn't pushing me along. It feels like nearly all of me is gone. And there's this deep draw to let go. Very deep draw to just let go. It's absolutely, it feels like I couldn't not let go and go with that. And at the point of just really wanting to do that, and it felt like, you know, it was so strong that you just let, if there was a feather in a tornado and, you know, you just need to just relax your finger and it would just go. But within that experience, it felt like there was the lightest touch appeared, which somehow said, don't. Just stay, come back. And there was a disappointment at hearing that. Not because I hate my life or anything, but that was in the experience. There was a disappointment because so much was moving in that way. But I knew that I just had to go back to that. You know, it was just like, for some reason, something entered that experience and I had to kind of go back. And I didn't particularly sort of want to, but there was, and in that image, the dark, for some reason it's darkness. It looks like there's a dark wood stain. I'm not just picking that up off the floor, but I've thought about it before. It felt like I was in a shrine room. No, it felt like there's this very dark, this dark wood stain sort of thing. Don't know where I got the wood stain from. And it was, but then there's this, it's almost like there's a thread, like literally a hair fine made of light that just appears and has caught me. And I just have to go back, and that was it. And it's happened, it's a bit strange, it's happened a couple of times. I can't really say anything more about it than that, but it's just, yeah, I suppose it's something that's had a similar sort of quality. Yeah, I mean, for some reason, I've got an image of, I mean, maybe it happened when I was having a bit of a reckless period, when I was playing in a band, and I wasn't practicing Buddhism at the time. And I've got an image of one point, for some reason, I'm lying on the floor in a dressing room in an Italian gig venue where we were playing. And it felt like it happened then. But I don't know if it did happen then or not. That's the only faint image of the outside context I have. But maybe that's me making up some connection. I don't know. But it felt like I was a bit closer. Okay. Where were we? Everyone all right? How long have I been talking? 25 minutes? I'll keep going a little bit before we have a bit of a break. Or maybe I'll just keep blasting on, we'll see. Everyone okay? No one need to, if anyone needs a leg stretch, just stand up and do that. Don't be too polite and stuff. Don't start talking amongst yourselves though. You can if you really want. Maybe do it downstairs. Oh my Christ. That's a bad omen. So what I'll talk about now is the effects that Penny Sartori spoke about of near-death experience, and how it seemed to change for people who, you know, obviously were able to come back and report from it. So the main changes seem to be around whether people struggled in their near-death experience or not. The main thing seemed to be that people's priorities changed after it. Their values changed, their ethical perspective on life changed, the meaning of their life changed. Sometimes their friendships changed, sometimes their partners changed, because they came back after having a sort of experience of something so different that they couldn't ignore it, they couldn't forget it. And apparently it was often very difficult because people wouldn't always accept what they'd said. They said, you know, I saw so-and-so, and, you know, people would just think, oh, well, you know, you were doped up on drugs from the hospital, or you were losing it a bit, you weren't very well, sort of thing. So it was often very isolating for people coming back. But the difficulty seemed to be in integrating the experience after it. That was the difficulty. So integrating that strong experience into the rest of their lives. That seemed to be the difficulty people had, because it was something that was so strong, it was so definite, it couldn't be ignored, and it would cause them more suffering and more difficulty to ignore what had happened or what their experience was. So in a way, it became problematic sometimes in their lives. And it seemed to me that people's priorities changed. They seemed to move more towards having more purpose, wanting to generate more understanding and empathy and wisdom in their life, more love. People seemed to be less afraid of death. And people would just ask the question, is this what I want to do? Is this the life I want to live? Because they'd had a glimpse of the end of it. So it's like, crap, I'm back. Is this the life I want to live? Really asking that question. What an opportunity to have that, to be able to question, is this what I want to do with my life? Is this fundamentally what I want to do? And one's heart calling is suddenly thrown into relief very directly with these experiences, and you can't ignore it. It's right there. It's not hidden. You can't turn away from it. Your heart wish, your desire, in a positive way, is kind of called forth and calls you to reassess your life, to reassess things. So what? I suppose the obvious. Maybe I'll just talk a little touch about what, because I used to be really quite afraid of death. I don't mean like neurotically, but I think I had a healthy fear of it, and was always morbidly fascinated by it since I was a little kid, like a bit too morbidly at sometimes, like quite literally since I was a little kid. I was very fascinated by it, and again, maybe that's to do with having the diabetes since I was 5. I don't know. Lots of people just are fascinated by death anyway. And I was talking with Claire at the beginning of the class, and it's like, we can't ignore it, though, can we? You just can't ignore death. It's like so many people are affected by it, but so many people haven't got the opportunity to talk about it or live from experiences of it, or I was talking to Rick about a very vivid experience similar that he'd had, which is quite similar to my own, about remembering later that you'd had this very vivid experience. So we all just sort of have it. It all, we can't get away from the reality of death. Mahatma Gandhi has this lovely image of, he said life is a little bit like we've fallen off a huge skyscraper. So this is our life. We've fallen off a huge skyscraper. We're falling in midair, and you're kind of going, well, it seems all right so far, and it's kind of like, which I just thought was quite, I just quite like that image of like, hurtling towards death, and it's like, well, we're sort of all right, aren't we? And let's just kind of ignore the fact that, obviously the older you get, the more you sort of think about it anyway. But, the more I practice Buddhism, though, the more I have had the opportunity to sort of reflect on death, and I don't know if it's those little experiences I had or if it would have happened anyway, but I don't feel, I've got a fear of losing loved ones, of them dying, obviously, like definitely. But I don't have an immense, I don't have a fear anyway like I did about dying myself, really. I'd rather it not be long and incredibly painful, but it's sort of out of our hands, isn't it? But anyway, what I think I want to talk about, the difference between the effect upon consciousness of near-death experiences and the similarities between the effect upon consciousness of Buddhist practice, because it seems to me that they're very similar. They're very similar. Okay, this is where this is where these random squiggles get a bit confusing. Well, I suppose basically with Buddhist practice, what we're doing is we're reflecting on the nature of experience. Ultimately, we're reflecting more deeply on the nature of mind. We're reflecting on the fact that all beings want to experience love, that we want to experience love and happiness, that no other being is different from that. We reflect on the nature of impermanence, that there's always a flow, there's an unceasing flow of events. That's all that you can have confidence in, is this unceasing sort of movement in life. Whether that's right now in this present moment, the sound of my voice, it's just moving. Whether that's in your line of sight, even if you close your eyes, there's movement. There's no point you can stop it all and find some safety. And so, reflecting on that more, that opens us up to the nature of impermanence. It opens us up to empathy with others. It opens us up to the fact that we just want to be happy and well, but we're faced with this weird thing called death. We're faced with this weird thing called impermanence, which is the very thing, the very thing that you can be most confident about is the very thing that we absolutely don't want, and that's death, and that's in the moment impermanence, because we want to obviously be able to hold on to what is permanent, hold on to what is pleasant, push away what is unpleasant, and just kind of blob out and ignore the middle bits. So that's just how we are wired as human beings. It's quite natural. We're not doing anything wrong. That just happens. But if we work with that movement of craving to pull towards an aversion to push away, we see that that's a natural response as human beings, and we reflect on the nature of impermanence. We begin to let go and we begin to sort of open up. And I think from there arises more openness, more a sense of ease, calm, and I suppose in my experience, to me, very similar to what people can talk about in near-death experiences, and particularly sort of if you're on retreat, or you don't have to be on retreat. If you have a deeper insight into the nature of Buddhist practice, you will just tend to have a bit of a problem, because you then end up reevaluating your lives. It doesn't necessarily have to be drastically, but it causes a friction in your life. To reflect on love and the nature of impermanence causes a friction, because we're not born to do that, really. We're born to just block things out, to hold on to what we like, to just try and close ourselves in. But that causes us even more difficulty as well. So we're in this total fix. And it's only with the things like, Buddhist practice, or, if you're lucky enough to have a near-death experience. That sounds ridiculous, but it's like, if, we need something that's going to help us to sort of open up more to others, to empathize with others, and to try and find meaning and value in our lives. So we can either sort of hold on and hold out for a near-death experience, which looks like it's quite a slim chance that that's going to happen, or we can, we can try and practice. Even, you don't have to call yourself a Buddhist. You don't have to get deeply involved in the Buddhist center. You can do if you want, but you don't have to. You can just practice the principles of Buddhism, which is, just try and love other people, like your actions have consequences, all this sort of stuff. And what that does is those principles will allow us to sort of open up more to sort of to a deeper way of looking at things. Okay. I think I'll just crack on and then we'll open up to questions, because I've not got a hell of a lot more to say. I suppose I wanted to say one thing about it all is that Penny Sartori found that near-death experience there's nothing definite you can get from it. It's not like, okay, this thing will happen. There'll be a magnetic force, there'll be a nice light, or Jesus will appear, or, your parents will appear, or there's nothing definite that happens. And it seems to be quite different. So you can't even find a confidence in what might happen after death, which is, again, even more frightening in a way, because, we still don't know. So dwelling in, Penny Sartori said that she started doing a PhD about near-death experience and carried on after that. And she said she naively thought that by the time she finished her PhD, she'd have a really good sense and answers to near-death experience. And what she found, that she had like 100,000 more questions than she did at the beginning. and which I find, you know, fascinating and really sort of inspiring in a way. So there's nothing sort of definite that we can get from it, and also the fact that it's different across cultures. You know, I think there's in Southeast Asia, there's not just this clear sort of light. There's often an uphill bit of an uphill struggle, which is quite interesting, because over in Europe we don't have. There seems to be on a horizontal plane, but there seems to be literally a going uphill, and it's quite painful. And the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I mean, wow, if you read that, I've not known what to make of that for donkey's years. It's really out there, but that's coming from a very specific Tibetan, even Buddhist Tibetan perspective. And I think it's probably quite important as well that we're always just open to our own experience, whatever that is. And I remember when my mum died, and about maybe 9 years ago, she died very suddenly and slightly tragically. Remember when she died, my sister was a Buddhist at the time, and she spoke to her teacher, and he said, go to the place where your mum's died and read out the Tibetan Book of the Dead aloud. And I just felt really tense about that. I just thought, I think that's the last thing you need to do. I actually said that to us, because she said, so I better do that. And I just thought that was the last. I didn't think it was very good advice, you know, because the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's a lot of treasure in that, but it's not from our culture. And I said, I think it might be better to just go where Tamar died and just bring her to mind, and just remember her, and just think about and try and even communicate with her. I mean, I did that myself after she died, and, you know, did the metta bhavana, and definitely felt my metta was landing with her, you know, which is another thing. But I suppose the point is it's very different across cultures. So we have to be quite open to, and again, it's the same with the Buddhist practice. We have to be quite open to what is our experience, what is, again, so I'm flying all over the place here, what is the Western perspective on the nature of mind in a way? What's our perspective on it? What's your individual sort of perspective on it? But I think the thing is, we can't have full confidence in sort of after-death experience. Okay, just to finish up. So Penny Sartori said as well that one of her conclusions was, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, and again, it's very, very, well, it's very, very close, if not identical, with Buddhism, is that she felt that the current Western view that the brain produces consciousness and awareness is mistaken. So that was one of the things. She said that she thought that consciousness is primary and is around us all the time. That was another thing she said. So again, this opens up so many more questions. But I found that sort of fascinating. Bearing in mind, this is someone who's come from a strong medical background as well. So she's, you know, her conclusion is that, you know, we have this idea that consciousness and our whole, you know, all of our activities coming from the brain and the mind, and actually there's something much, you know, she said there's some consciousness is just much bigger than that. She said that near-death experience, we have filters on our life most of the time, and we see things in a certain way from a certain perspective. We all do, we can't get around that. But she felt that those filters were relaxed or widened, were opened up a bit. The lenses were less tinted through near-death experience, and that seemed to have a very sort of profound effect. And she said that near-death experience doesn't. I know I said this after what she said. This sense that near-death experience doesn't sort of create something new, but it just allows us to see beyond the filters that we have. So it's not that it's like we experience consciousness in a way that's more true to the nature of consciousness or the true nature of mind. That's what seems to happen with near-death experience. And that's also what happens with Buddhist practice. is that you experience consciousness more, so to speak, the way it is, that it's all pervading. It goes beyond time and space, and we just sort of partake in it in some way. We don't create it. And that's what Buddhist practice is. And the more we do that with Buddhist practice, the more, again, our life changes, and we just realize that, we've got so much more to offer by sort of trying to serve something bigger in our lives, which is love, compassion, awareness. We've got so much to offer by trying to live our lives by serving that, by serving this a bigger perspective, however that's manifested, whether it's manifested in the figure of a Buddha or whatever it is. If we can serve something that's bigger than our normal limited perception of ourselves, that sort of has a huge effect. And I suppose just to sort of round off, I guess that if we're thinking about, basically the figure of the Buddha is the figure of this consciousness. So that is the doorway in. So I'm trying to stop myself going on a really complicated little teaching here about the Nirmanakaya of the Buddha, the three bodies of the Buddha. But basically, the Buddha or enlightenment is the way into this vast consciousness, which people appear to glimpse with near-death experience. They glimpse something much bigger. But it's moving through Buddhist practice, it's sort of moving towards the Buddha, moving towards the teachings of the Buddha, which are the Dharma, and sort of belonging to a community, which is the Sangha. That is how we can create something that is incredibly similar, I would say almost totally similar to near-death experiences in a certain way, in terms of a vast, different experience of sort of consciousness, which is beyond our normal sort of just self-motivated, limited perspectives, which I am in nearly all the time caught up in. We all are. We're hardwired to do that. It's fine. That's just the way it is. But there's something much bigger, and near-death experience or Buddhist practice is a way to experience that. I suppose the difference with the near-death experience is that it seems that there are specifics to it, but I think I'm talking about the effect on the nature of mind of near-death experience and sort of Buddhist practice, really, how they're sort of quite similar. But do go ahead, look at Penny Sartori's stuff. Look at Maitreya Vandu. He's got a fantastic interview with her. There's a fantastic interview with Maitreya Vandu and Jan of Arch, who's done a lot of. Another order member who's done a lot of exploration of all this business. But what it does, the main thing is, hopefully it just helps us get beyond, look at the nature of mind in a different way, look at consciousness and life in a different way, and it will hopefully sort of, in a way, inspire us to do that, whether it's through Buddhist practice or whatever it is that you choose to do. It's it's beginning to just open up, question, have a look, try to see things differently, and try to live your life differently, and try to sort of, we can all just sort of learn from these near-death experiences that, there's a different way of living and experiencing the world and our life. Yeah. I think that's all I've got to say on that. So we've got a quarter of an hour, haven't we? So let's just open up to any questions or any sort of points anyone's got, whether that's via Aryavachan and Zoom at home or here. So yeah, just any questions or any reflections, anything anyone wants to share.
I thought it was interesting when you said that lots of the subjects found it problematic.
Sorry, so we'll just wait. We've got a microphone floating about here, just so we can all hear you at home.
Yeah, I was just saying that, do you want me to just hold that? Okay. That a lot of the subjects found it problematic after they'd had the near-death experience. And in a way, from a lot of the things you were saying, it's kind of a blessing, isn't it? Because you've had a glimpse into something. Did Penny say kind of what their issue was? Was it just that it was almost too much?
Well, I think it seemed that most people had a positive experience. Some people had a negative one. It seemed to be, it seemed of two types. One was whereby the experience itself was quite traumatic. So some of the people would experience a lot of a real sense of guilt or a real sense of being pulled down, and it was generally quite harrowing.
Depending on their age?
No, it didn't seem to be. It didn't seem to be. No. The other time after it was difficult was when someone had maybe had a very positive experience or even a fairly normal experience, and people just didn't get it. Or they dismissed it, or they said, "So, the drugs you were on at the time," or, "Well, I don't really believe that. It was probably a hallucination," or, "Well, there, don't worry." So they couldn't communicate. So they felt it quite isolating. So excuse me. I think I'd like to sort of say that it would always be a blessing, but I think I can't say that because one would have to speak to the people who've experienced that, because they might say, "Look, it's just been really damn difficult, and I'd rather it didn't happen because it's just got in the way." I don't know, but again, yeah.
People have kind of, had been Buddhist before or had kind of thought about these things, and then they have this experience, and then maybe they'd be more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because if you hadn't thought of those things at all, then you have a near-death experience. It is going to be traumatic.
Yeah. Well, but it's also quite interesting. Is it's people's. So again, this is twofold. People seem to have very little experience of Buddhism and will have a sort of mini, so to speak, awakening experience, or even non-Buddhists can have that. But also people have very little experience of religion or meditation and have a near-death experience as an awakening experience. So that's mysterious. And I put that sort of personally down to interesting reflections around past lives, or again, the mystery of the nature of consciousness and mind. But yeah, it's quite interesting how people can come across certain things and it have a really strong effect. And for some others, it just again, it's just a mystery. Yeah. Kusala Devi.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is a response to what David was saying. Yeah. There was one woman that Penny Sartori mentioned who, I think she was in her 90s and got in touch with Penny Sartori when she published her study and just said, "Thank you so much. I had a near-death experience when I was sort of 17, something like this, and I have never been able to speak about it." So she had found that isolating her whole life, and then suddenly was like, in her 90s, I think she got in touch with Dr. Penny Sartori and said, "Thank you for doing this and for exploring it more." Like, I just found that very moving that she was then able to sort of make a bit more of it, or even just be understood and be listened to and like believed, and just found that really moving.
I was like that when he told me. I came around and I said something about it. It was always it was the morphine, it was all the painkillers you was on, and no one believed me. I eventually spoke to a counsellor about it. I spoke to a counsellor eventually who stated that it sounded like a near-death experience that I had, but it did change my life. I was a bit of a speed demon before my accident, and I don't even touch a motorbike now. But I spoke to you about the figure, which I now believe I think was the Buddha, and that changed my life. From there, I decided I wanted to be a Buddhist for many, many years after, but I never took the courage to go forward with it. I've not really spoke about it much because most people say, "Oh, it's just the drugs," like you say, or you just had a bit of a dream and stuff like that. But the more and more I look into it, the more and more I think that was my path, was to be a Buddhist. And so I took a positive from it. Whereas medical side think, no, you just had a psychotic dream or something, But I can understand, I can relate to it, and to be honest, it's the first time I think I really opened up to everyone about it. So yeah, so I quite relate with this evening.
Yeah, good. Thanks for it. Yeah, great. Any other questions, are we watching?
We have a question
Online.
Can you invite her to answer the question?
Can what?
Invite her to answer the question, to unmute herself and ask the question.
Harry, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I can.
Hello.
Hi. Do you want me to read my question?
Yes.
So I just said, what reassurance do you take from these people's experiences and the Buddhist view on death when people around you pass away?
Good question. Well, two things. One is I take a lot of reassurance in my response to it and the perspective of metta towards someone who's passed away. So in Sangharakshita's book, someone asked Sangharakshita, can you practice metta, which is a loving kindness? Can you feel love towards someone who's dying? There's a particular meditation called the Metta Bhavana, which is a development of loving kindness. And you put particular people in it. Someone asked him, could you put someone that's died in it? And he said, of course you can. He said that he said a few things about it which were fascinating, but I did that with my mum, and I contacted her. I definitely felt it landed, and I feel, I will still put my mum in meditation. I don't feel, oh, she's gone. What do I do? I do feel it contacts her. So that's one thing that you can do yourself. I suppose the other thing is, obviously I don't know. I've not, died and come back or anything, but my sense is through reflecting on it a lot, a bit through my experience and through talking to some friends of mine that practice Buddhism since before I was born, there's, and the Buddhist perspective is there's something definitely that is in rebirth, that something carries on. There isn't, and it's not that there's ending, that something definitely carries on, consciousness carries on, and there's a whole Buddhist perspective and rebirth. So it's not logical. I just think, oh, good, so they're not dead and that's fine. But my sense is, and this is all I could probably say, Harry, is that something carries on, and I feel that, like with my mum, I sort of feel that she's carried on somewhere. I don't really know how. The traditional thing is that, well, she's reborn somewhere, which weirds me out a little bit because she's probably about 8 years old now, but I'm not going to go there. But quite seriously, I mean, that sounds like a bit crazy, but from the Buddhist perspective, that there is this in-between stage which can last anything from a few weeks to a few years. But the confidence I get is that there's something carries on, in particular that I can feel metta towards someone that's died and bear them vividly in mind. Yeah.
Thank you, that was really helpful.
Okay, good. Thanks for your question, Harry.
We also have a couple of comments from Romy, she's sharing an experience.
Romy, did you want to say anything?
Sure. I'll read out what I typed in the chat. So I wanted to say thank you for bringing this up. I don't really talk about it, but I think I've had something close to a near-death experience. And it was just comfortable with the feeling of death. But at the same time, happy to come back when I did. Yeah, and I just saw, I was really happy with where I had come to, and like what I'd made so far in terms of who I had surrounded myself with was the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's that's really lovely to hear. particularly that sense of what seems to happen to people is a sort of, it seems to bring about, as opposed to more horror and fear, it seems to bring about more ease and more sort of, in a way, more sort of wellness of mind, and again, you know, priorities changing, like you say. There's a sense of, yeah, just you're connecting with family and so on, and being at ease around the notion of death and life as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I recently met someone on a night out, actually, that's similar age to me, who had a near-death experience on a bike and almost died. He had a very positive experience, and his mindset changed in a similar way that my mindset has changed with Buddhism. And I was just wondering if there's anything recorded of people losing that feeling of something having changed since their near-death experience as life goes on.
You met someone about your age. So almost like, what if he lost that experience?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the fortunate and unfortunate thing is you just sort of can't lose it. Yeah. As in with anything, if something happens, it can't not affect your life.
Can't be undone.
Say again.
Can't be undone.
Yeah, it can't be undone. I mean, one's perspective will change on it. So, you know, surely, okay, if something happens when you're 20 years old, if this person's 80 years old, it will have informed their life, even if they've had to just get on and even put it down because they've not known what to do with it. But it's almost like, you know, the principal teaching of Buddhism is that actions have consequences. So something vivid like that couldn't not have an effect. Doesn't mean he or she's going to spend the rest of their life like living from that. And it might be that it even fades, but it doesn't mean it hasn't had a serious and positive effect on their life. Yeah. So, and again, we can't hold on to these experiences. It might be that, you know, you can let it definitely inform further experience. You can't forget it. It will inform experience, but it's fine. Even if you do forget it, it's fine, because the you that's forgot it has been informed by the you that had it, so to speak, to get a bit metaphysical. So it's because I've felt it myself when I've had strong experiences in meditation, or it's like, oh, I don't want to lose that. I don't want to, and you kind of hold it and go, oh, what if, and I even did all lose it all at a time. Like, I stopped practicing Buddhism, I came away from it, I thought, I can't do it, it's doing my head in. But I just ended up coming back. It just came back to me. So but it might not even happen like that though. But it will always inform you. Yeah, even if you don't. And again, you've got to hold all experience lightly as well. You know, whatever it is, you've got to hold it lightly, and that's yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yes, Connor.
So I was quite struck by what you were saying about the effect it has on people sort of going forward when they have a near-death experience like this. And sort of to me, that sounds like, if such as in this context, we're already Buddhist, that to me sounds like rocket fuel for one's practice. Obviously, I've never had one of these experiences, but I was kind of wondering, from you, as somebody who's been practicing for quite a long time, is there anything we can do to kind of recreate the effect on our practice without necessarily having to put our lives at risk in order to do so?
Well, yeah, totally. I mean, that was what I was sort of, maybe I didn't make it so explicitly. I suppose the answer would be, from the Buddhist perspective, would be to go for refuge, or basically to just practice Buddhism to the best extent that you can. And just to keep doing that, and when you hit a brick wall with it, you reassess it, you work out a way round, you work out a bit of the wall where the concrete's a bit, you work out where there's a brick that's going to move, you push that through. There's always a way forward, and whenever you kind of stop. So it's just keeping practicing, and in a way, excuse me, you're much more likely to have a different experience of consciousness, to enrich your life, I would say, through Buddhism than you are through a near-death experience. So I know I can't really say, but you're much more likely, if if you practice Buddhism, to end up with experiencing more love, more compassion, more wisdom, more clarity. That is much more likely to happen than what? I don't know. Well, then, I mean, there's no hedging your bets about it if you do that. You know, there's no hedging your bets if you align yourself with the nature of reality, or if you align yourself with the fact that if you're truthful and honest, you know, you feel clear. If you're generous, you feel lighter. You can't get around that. If you punch someone in the face, you feel a bit shit. You can't get around it. There are these principles that are there in all religions, these basic, you can't get around them unless there's something seriously wrong with you. You know, but it's like you just can't get around it. So why was I making the point about not getting around things? I can't remember. But yeah, that was it, because you can be much more confident in that than you could be, will a near-death experience have a positive effect on your life and be the rocket fuel? So the rocket fuel is to just really practice, to commit yourself to practice, to stay in relation to others, and that's where the rocket fuel is. And that's where that's where the pure, reliable fuel is. The fuel for near-death experience might have a bit of crap in it. You don't know. It might be the rocket fuel, but it might stall at some point, or it might just die, which is, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, great, good. Okay, it's 9:33. So yeah, thank you all very much for coming. Do I need to say anything else apart from what that's the end of the night? Yeah, just thank you very much all for coming. It's very nice to see you.